Hello and welcome back to Cooking by Zoe. By popular demand, this tutorial is created for those that are interested on how to create the perfect meringue for French macarons. Having the perfect meringue will ensure that your macaron cookie shells will have fullness and no hollows. This is how a stiff peak or the perfect meringue I am referring to. This is a pretty detailed tutorial from start to end of me making the meringue. I'll also be timing it as well, so you are more than welcome to follow along and do this at the same time. For this recipe, I'll be using 200 grams of egg whites, room temperature, 200 grams of granulated sugar, and half a teaspoon of cream of tartar. I'll be using my KitchenAid stand mixer to make this meringue. If you're using anything else or using a different recipe, you'll need to adjust your time. In my stand mixer, I have 200 grams of room temperature egg whites, and I have my timer here. I'm going to turn this on to speed number 4 and set my timer. I'm setting mine at 0, but if you do have a timer, you can put that for 47 or 50 seconds. And what you want to do is whisk this until it is frothy and foamy. The timing for making this recipe is based on the amount of ingredients that I mentioned earlier. If you're going to be using a different recipe, the timing may be different for you. I am using room temperature egg whites. They are not aged and they are not cold. So if you're going to be using cold egg whites or aged egg whites, the timing on this recipe may be slightly different. So we'll continue to whisk this until we get to about 47 to 50 seconds. And then we're going to add in our cream of tartar. And usually I don't turn the mixer off, but because I'm recording and adjusting these time, then I'm turning this off just to show you. After you have added the cream of tartar, turn your speed back on to speed number 4. And you'll want to turn your timer on for 60 seconds or 1 minute. Of course, I'm starting my timer at 0. And what you want to do is continue at this speed. And by the time you get to 60 seconds or 1 minute, then you should start to see some tracks leaving from the whisk. And at that point is a good sign that you can move on with the next step. And just keep watching. I'll show you how or what I mean when I say tracks are leaving from the whisk. For those that are watching this video but do not have the same stand mixer, or if you're using a different stand mixer, if you're doing this using a handheld mixer or you're using a different recipe, just follow along and see the different steps that I'm explaining, and that's what you're looking for, okay? Okay, so we are approaching 60 seconds or 1 minute pretty soon, and I already can see the tracks leaving from the whisk. If you can't see in this video, I'm going to show you something closer, so just continue watching. Okay, so here is what I mean when the tracks are leaving from the whisk. That means you're ready to add in your granulated sugars. Keep your speed at number 4. Set your timer for less than 60 seconds. 50 seconds is actually a good time. And you'll want to add your granulated sugar in 3 separate portions, separated by at least 10 to 20 seconds. And you just want to eyeball this. They don't have to be exact. Just avoid adding all the sugar at once. So what I do is I add some of the sugar in 3 portions. I wait about 15 seconds, and then I add the second one, and then another 15 to 20 seconds, and then I add the last. And then after you have added in all of the granulated sugar, you'll turn your speed up to number 6. So again, after you added all your granulated sugar, change the speed up to number 6, and then you're going to set your timer for 6 minutes. The total amount of time that you're going to whisk at speed number 6 to get a stiff peak is a total of 6 minutes using this recipe. Now the question is, when do you add the food coloring? Well, you can add it at 2 to 2.5 minutes of whisking at speed number 6. So if you want, you can set your timer to 2 minutes, or what I do is I just let my timer go until I get a little past 2 minutes, and then I add in my food coloring. One tip I do want to mention or point out is I don't ever go above speed number 6 when making my meringue. I notice that if I do, and I've tried speed 8 before, and it just makes my macaron more airy. So I do recommend do not go past speed number 6. Now let's talk about food coloring. If you're wondering what type of food coloring is recommended for French macarons, it's highly recommended to use gel food coloring or powder food coloring. You want to avoid using liquid food coloring. The whole reason behind avoiding using liquid food coloring is basically because it's just so liquidy that liquid is going to damage the meringue and the consistency of the meringue. So therefore, your macaron cookie shells will not turn out. The amount of food coloring that you're going to add to your meringue is really based on the color that you're trying to achieve. So again, the best time to add your food coloring is when your meringue is at a soft peak. And usually, if you're following my direction, at about 2 minutes, that's when you will start to form a soft peak. This is how a soft peak looks like. You dip your whisk into the meringue, you'll see that the peak is not stiff and it's pretty soft, and that's the best time to add your food coloring of choice. After you have added your food coloring, turn the speed back up to number 6 and continue whisking this until you get to 6 minutes. At that time, you should be at a stiff peak. One important thing to keep in mind is you don't want to under or overbeat your meringue. Under or overbeating your meringue will give you several issues, and the outcome of your macarons will definitely not turn out perfect. If you're interested in learning how to make other recipes for macarons flavoring for the filling, I do have several recipes on my YouTube channel, so do go and check those out. I will link some of those down below. We are approaching 6 minutes, and now that we are at 6 minutes, go ahead and turn your timer off and turn your speed to 0. At this point, your meringue should be at a stiff peak. If you remove the whisk, it should look similar to mine's. A lot of the meringue will be stuck to the ball of the whisk, and you'll have a stiff peak spike sticking up. If you are to turn your bowl upside down, your meringue should not fall out either. We have come to the end of making our meringue for French macaron. The next step will be to add in our dry ingredients. If you would like to see how that's done, please check out my other tutorials or stay tuned. I'll be posting a new tutorial, which is this delicious strawberry macaron filled with white chocolate strawberry ganache and a delicious strawberry jam filling in the center. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this tutorial helpful.